God knows it's embarrassing. Help you make it through tonight.
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not. Yeah, keep going.
Tonight, we're talking about Season 1, Episode 24, with host Kris Kristofferson and musical guests Kris Kristofferson and Rita Coolidge. This episode originally aired on July 31st, 1976, the second of the summer episodes. Brad?
Gary?
And this is our first episode doing this face-to-face in person.
You're obviously thrown off.
I'm thrown off because your shirt is unbuttoned 3/4 of the way.
Yeah, baby, that's how you do it in 1976, man. Come on.
No, I mean, I think that's how Kris Kristofferson may have done it in 1976.
We should also say we are a few bottles of wine in.
Yeah, we're a couple bottles of wine in. We have poorly made old fashions that I just threw together.
Don't knock my fashion, though.
No, you look great.
Thank you. Just end it there.
No, great. So there's a reason that we are recording live and that we've had some wine already, because Kris Kristofferson in this episode was not totally coherent. Can we agree on that?
We can, but that's not the point, Gary. I'm going to backtrack a little bit if we can.
Okay.
As I went to bed last night, and as I often do, thinking about the podcast, which I'm sure you do when you go to bed. No,
I thought you were going to say thinking of me, and I felt really good about myself.
I went to bed last night, and I'm thinking of the podcast, as I often do.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll deal with your non-commitment later. And I realized I have not seen you face to face since we have started this endeavor.
That is true.
The last time I saw you was almost a year ago.
Uh-huh.
We took a road trip.
Oh, yeah.
I left from New York. I met you in Philadelphia, and the two of us together drove to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
To watch a Pirates game, to see Pujols and Molina play their last games. Then we drove back. The point of the story being, on the way back, we started talking about SNL, and it gave me the idea, like, yes, maybe we could do this. This could be something we could do. We could have fun doing. Let's do a podcast. Let's go back and talk about old SNL. That's the last time you and I had seen each other.
Yeah.
In person.
That's insane.
Since then, we came up with the idea. We prepped the idea. We rehearsed it. We came up with it. We did all the work. We recorded 22 some odd episodes, not in person.
Right.
This is the first time I have seen you since we have actually started this ridiculous endeavor of going back.
Yeah.
I will say cheers.
Cheers. All right.
So there you go. There's the history of our little show, how it came to be. I had this idea. I somehow hoodwinked you into it. And here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. Season 1 finale. Kris Kristofferson, a drunken mess. And it only seemed fitting that we finally get in the same room together
and get drunk.
Become our own drunken mess.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
Fair enough. Well, this has worked out to plan then, Brad.
It's all coming together.
All right. So if you've never listened to our podcast before, go back and listen to some other episodes first. This episode, this is us jumping into what was the episode at the time of Kris Kristofferson clearly not being totally sober as he hosted and was one of the musical guests of this episode.
Yes.
This was one of the summer episodes, which we've discussed in previous episodes, was an accommodation that NBC pushed for with the new contract renewal for season 2.
After they won the Emmys, which I will double down on my Lorne Michaels SNL FU to NBC, why this episode is what it is. But regardless, yes, Kris Kristofferson, host / half musical guest with wife Rita Coolidge.
Look, if we didn't know that Kris Kristofferson was in the state that he apparently was in for this episode, I would have just thought, he's not very good at this. Maybe. I also feel like the cast did not want to be here for summer episode number 2. Right. Well, this is end of July, New York City. Like, why would they want to be here? Right?
They
Like,
don't want to be here. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, no one wanted to be here. It didn't look like Kris Kristofferson wanted to be here at certain points, but they put on a show that with all of these obstacles, let's say, it wasn't as bad as I was afraid it was going to be.
No, I think this is an episode in the SNL lore gets romanticized or whatever as an amazingly horrible bad episode. No, like it's just a bad episode. And is the host drunk? Yes. I mean, it has gone down in the lore that Kris Kristofferson was extremely drunk between dress and air. They pumped him full of coffee. But to the point, I feel like this is part of SNL being like, fine, to NBC, you want us to put on summer shows? Fine, we will. We're going to put Louise Lasser on episode 1. Episode 2, we're going to put on a rock star, Kris Kristofferson, who's going to be drunk as a skunk, and you're going to get what you're going to get. And we'll do the best we can. And good luck. And that's what we have tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, that is what we have tonight. So Kris Kristofferson at this point, he's not a movie star yet, right? Like A Star Is Born. Been out?
So he's been in movies. Star Is Born comes out later this year in December. So I think he's already filmed it, but it hasn't come out yet, which is what really kind of, I think, sets him off as a actor as opposed to the singer-songwriter that he was up to this point. But don't knock him. I mean, at this point, he's won several Grammys. He's been a very prolific songwriter for other artists. And we've mentioned this, I think, a couple of times this first season, them catching somebody on their upswing.
Right.
You know, he's written songs, he's performed songs. I mean, Bobby McGee, he's on his way up. And by the end of this year, when Star Is Born comes out, it really sets him into that A-list category, I think. But at this point, he's on that upswing. He's coming up.
Yeah, he definitely feels like someone who is not totally broken through, but is just about there. And he is at this point.
I mean, he's won 3 Grammys at this point. 2 of them with his wife, Rita Coolidge, who's the musical guest. Nominated for another 7. So he's...
7?
Yeah, he had won 3
and
and had been nominated for 7 up to this point.
Well, should we get into it?
Did we say we're like 3 bottles of wine in and now we're drinking old fashions?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's how we let off, just so people know. All right,
cold open.
So cold open.
Yes.
The cold open, it starts unlike any other to this point with Kris Kristofferson singing "Help Me Make It Through the Night." That's a song from his 1970 album.
His debut album, yes.
Sure. And this is
sure.
I care. So this was intercut with footage of Chevy and his wife Rita Coolidge undressing, because that's what the song is about. The song starts with something about taking the ribbon out of your hair.
The first line, yes.
That's the first line.
Yep.
And then it cuts to Chevy and Rita Coolidge trying to take the ribbon out of her hair. It felt like...
Well, that's false. It cuts to Chevy just lying in bed.
Shirtless. Chevy.
Shirtless with pajama bottoms. And then Rita Coolidge comes in, and then he does try to take the ribbon out of her hair.
Right. But it felt like the whole joke here, all 4 minutes of this joke was from the first line, but this joke didn't start until like 18 lines into the
Well, even
song.
Before that, I feel like this is a callback to like episode 1, where they fade in and the host is just sitting at home base all of a sudden. Like there's no intro. Like, here we go, fade in. Luckily, Kris Kristofferson can sing. And then they all of a sudden cut to Chevy and you're like, okay, this is a sketch now?
Right.
I guess. And then Rita Coolidge shows up.
My first note was the cold open starts on Kristofferson. He's singing ... Another Paul Simon?
No, because they try to make it comedic with the Chevy Chase interlude.
Yes, they tried. Didn't work for me.
I will give them credit because it is an interesting way to make a comedy bit with a musical host. Because to your point, this is the first time they've had the host be a musical act, right? Since Paul Simon.
Yeah.
And that was episode 2, which became the Paul Simon Show, which was kind of the Paul Simon variety act. So at least at this point, they're taking a musical act, making them the host, but trying to turn it comedic. So I got to give them a little credit for that.
Okay. You give them all the credit you want.
Trying to help.
So then we go through the credits, and for the monologue, we come.
Well, you're jumping ahead.
I'm trying.
Well, so they go back and forth between Kris singing and Chevy trying to pull this ribbon out of Rita Coolidge's hair. Finally, he pulls the ribbon out of her hair, as well as apparently half of her hair, and then falls off stage into the darkness over what I can only assume is 3 metal folding chairs. Of course.
And maybe a folding table.
And then pops up live from New York. It's Saturday night. I mean, this felt to me like one of the most forced falls.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And to be honest, shitty falls.
Yeah. Well, he falls into the darkness. Like you can't really see him fall.
Right.
He falls out into the darkness and you hear him, and then they go to another camera that can see him, and he's lit where he's obviously not on stage anymore. But yeah, not great.
Because even as much as like we've complained about cold opens not being great, Chevy's done decent falls.
Yes.
This was even just like a piss poor fall.
Yes.
I would say for him.
Yes.
But he wakes up live from New York at Saturday Night Live.
Did you say he wakes up?
He wakes up. He falls. He wakes up live from New York. It's Saturday night. Opening credits.
I like that. From now on, can we just say, and then Chevy wakes up live to New York.
I ain't going to say it much longer.
Then we go to our monologue, which is just Kris Kristofferson is already on stage, as maybe that makes sense.
I'm going to backtrack again.
Oh, man. This episode's going to take forever.
So Pardo does not say it's NBC's Saturday night.
I thought he said NBC's Saturday night.
I felt even Don Pardo felt very unhappy to be there at this point. Okay, never mind. Moving along. Go ahead. Don Pardo's not happy to be there. We're not happy to talk about it. Now the monologue.
No, I think he says NBC Saturday night.
I don't think he does.
I remember. Look, I got it up right
Why
now.
would I write a note that he does not say that if he didn't say it?
NBC Saturday night.
Did you hear that?
He didn't say it's.
Wait. So
I'm saying the word it's means whatever.
So you're saying he doesn't
I'm
say
just
it's?
saying Don Pardo doesn't want to be there in July.
No, of course he doesn't. Why is that a shocker to anyone?
Anyway, we cut to the monologue. Surprise, surprise. Kris Kristofferson still sitting on the stool.
His shirt is unbuttoned, much like yours is right now.
Thank you.
I'm not sure which one makes me more unsettled.
I don't care.
You don't have a long dangly necklace on like he does.
No, and this is where we really realize he is drunk. Like this dude is having trouble speaking English.
Well, he even references that they didn't want him to do a monologue because he wouldn't be good at it. And then he starts rambling. And then
I feel like they had a monologue at one point, and between dress and they're like, we can't do this. Just
Never
go out
mind.
there and introduce Lorraine Newman and get us out of this. Because he basically talks about how they didn't want him to do a monologue.
yeah. And he takes a very long time. Like he comes out and says, you know, they didn't want me to do a monologue. I can't do a monologue. Blah, blah, blah. And then he keeps rambling. Like he doesn't even pitch to Sherry.
He's out of his mind.
Yes, he is.
We usually at the point in the show here is where they let the host jar the audience, spar with them, and set some kind of an atmosphere for the rest of the show. They didn't think I could do this. Also, they have been getting in trouble lately. This has a little controversy on it every now and then. And as a result of something that happened recently, some equal time has been demanded for this following individual. And see why they didn't let me do the monologue? So here she is.
I mean, we should bring it up. This is the point where at dress rehearsal of this show, he is so drunk that he can't get through it. And they're legitimately worried he can't do the show. And the cast members are trying to like divvy up who will do his parts on sketches if he can't perform. Very much allegedly they did the week before with Louise Lasser. But they're like, all right, well, if he can't do this, at least to that credit, he's in a lot more in this episode than Louise Lasser was last week. Like,
Right.
And this monologue is basically an intro to a sketch.
Well,
That's all. This is basically an intro to a Lorraine Newman sketch.
but that was my thought watching this is this really how they set up the monologue, or was this just a abort the monologue and just throw to Lorraine?
I feel it's an abort.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I feel it's an abort.
Well, should we just move on to Lorraine?
We should. We totally should.
I feel like, so he then throws to Lorraine as Sherry, the Valley girl that we've seen a couple of times to this point.
Yep.
And she is, she's talking. So Sherry, who was the Saturday night secretary, and she talks about how she got this job and what it took for her to get through this season. And she calls out Dave Wilson, the director, Alan Zweibel, which, wow. The Alan Zweibel one.
Okay, first of all, she calls out pretty much every male writer on the show.
Yes.
Is what she does. Yes.
The Alan Zweibel one was a little harsh. Tom Schiller, and then Franken and Davis. And then she talks about O'Donoghue, and then Herb Sargent. And all of these guys, she's talking about the things that they would ask her to do as the quote unquote, the secretary.
Secretary, right.
Of SNL, and all of the sexual harassment that she had to do, all of this leading up to her pitching her new book, I Was Not a Sucker for Saturday Night, which then ends with her being called to help Chevy with a sketch.
With update, yeah.
Yeah. And, oh, right.
Like Tom Schiller asked me to act out a scene with him at his apartment. Then he called two other writers, Tom Davis and Al Franken, and because he said he was having trouble with his inspiration. So they came over and we all acted out the scene, except it wasn't in the show, which I thought was really weird. And after a while, it got even more disgusting. Like Michael O'Donoghue, he just couldn't finish writing the Star Trek skit unless I kept whispering to him the words, "Rocket ships are okay, but your missile is tremendous."
All right, let's just talk about this Sherry character for a minute. Like we said, this was the first time we've seen Sherry by herself to camera, and Lorraine totally has this character down.
Yes. Lorraine is great.
Yes.
I mean, as bad or as cringy as this sketch may be, Lorraine's performance is fantastic. She is great. She plays the character great. She hits all the beats great. Like, she is fantastic. 100%.
Yes. Was this not a red flag to everyone?
1976, baby. Come on.
That's the excuse we give to this all the time.
We do. No, this is very 1976. And the sad thing is, this plays very well today, and you could rewrite this with very little changes and have it be the same kind of, if not more, kind of damning effect that you would of a sketch. Like, she's calling out the writers, the male writers, and the environment in which this show is made.
Yeah.
People are laughing a lot, and it's very funny. I think this is a sketch now that actually works almost better now than it did then. Because then most people don't know Zweibel. You don't know Tom Schiller. You maybe know Franken and Davis. So now 40 years later, all of us SNL nerds, you know who these people are. You know Davis, you know Franken, so to us, it's fun to hear this, but back then, maybe you might have known one of these people. So to name all these writers was it was so in-house.
Right.
And such an in-joke that I don't think it was nearly as funny as we now think it was.
Sure.
At the time, I almost feel like it felt like filler.
It did.
But you watch it now and you're like, that's got a lot to say. And I think it says a lot that this little throwaway holds a lot nowadays.
Yeah. Well, I think this character of Sherry kind of maintains its integrity as opposed to, we'll get to our next sketch, but someone like the samurai, whereas like the Sherry character is still a relevant character in 2023, right? Like there's,
you can play it that way. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You can still play that character now and talk about sexual harassment that you had to deal with at the office or wherever. And it could still be totally real. It would be played differently, obviously, but it's a character that holds true.
I mean, she gets up at the end of the sketch and is like, I have to go see Chevy with the apparatus, and grabs like a vacuum cleaner with a feather duster at the end is like disgusting. And like everybody laughs.
Yes.
We're like, now there would be no laughs. There'd be groans.
Right. Yeah. Yes. It's a good point.
And I'm just saying that to the smartness of that sketch, like I'm intrigued. I would love to know who wrote this because it feels like an Ann Beats or Rosie Schuster type sketch.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Where like we're fucking putting our middle fingers up at the dudes on this show, but at that time it just comes off a comedy, not as the commentary as it should.
Right. But that's not. Yeah, that's not what they were going for.
No,
at the time.
they weren't, and they
absolutely.
were not. They were not to them. I agree.
Yeah. Well, the character that I was referencing that may not make it through 2023 is Samurai, who comes on next as Samurai General Practitioner. John is there in the doctor's office, and Kris Kristofferson comes in as his patient, which I thought he did a pretty decent job playing the straight man to the samurai for certain parts. Like, if
by his job, you mean playing a drunk Kris Kristofferson? Because he played himself and he played it.
No, I meant
drunkenly
like
well.
This is one of the parts that he didn't laugh at. He didn't break character during this sketch.
No,
much.
I guess not.
But John plays the general practitioner, and they are, I don't know. I don't even know what Kris Kristofferson came in for.
Some kind of an exam of some sort.
Yeah.
I agree, because he came in and it was like, it wasn't like a physical, because at one point he has this really great line where he says, I'm not dying, but I don't know what I'm living for, or something of that nature. So
Yeah.
it's like, is it a physical, or was there an ailment that he had to come in to get checked out for? It wasn't really clear.
Yeah. There was one funny bit when Kris Kristofferson gets on the scale and then the measuring part, and then he gets off and John gets the little finger, the rubber thing.
Well,
over
even
his
before
finger.
that, I like the part where he measured his height, and then Kris walks off and he's like, oh, I'm glad I wasn't taller than that.
Yeah.
Kris turns away, and behind his back, John takes the glove out and puts the little glove on his finger and lubed it up. And he does this like prostate exam joke behind his back, which the audience fucking love. And then Kris turns around and looks at him like, what's going on? And then John goes back to the scale and starts lubing the scale to get it,
Right.
smoother up and down,
Which was funny.
it was funny. Kris is taking some tests, so he gives him a bottle and sends him into the bathroom. And then this is what I didn't really understand. It's like all of a sudden, like John pulls out a picture from the folder, and there's like a naked woman.
Yeah.
And he puts it up on the X-ray
Yeah.
thing. He's looking at a picture of a naked woman. Like,
Right. I wrote that down.
What's
Like they
going
have
on
a
here?
full naked woman on the X-ray the slides. I didn't get that.
I mean, I kind of like this sketch because Kris is so drunk and so out of it. Neither of them are speaking English. So neither one of these two people are speaking English. And I have complained earlier, like these samurai sketches really only work with Buck, because Buck is so good and he's so in tune, and the two of them play off each other so well. But this sketch did kind of work because neither of them speak English. The two of them are either grunting or slurring or making no sense. So the sketch kind of worked.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I get what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying he was like a drunk version of himself. And the fact that he couldn't speak English played well against the samurai.
I get it. All right. Yeah.
Hey, standing up. Is that home? I've been meaning to. Give up the. I'm going. Well, it don't mean no more to me than anything else. Yeah, you got that, but that's just only half the story.
I felt like Kris Kristofferson did an okay job of being the straight man, but let's not compare him to Buck Henry.
And the ending was kind of fun, where they finish the end, and because they do this as the makeshift TV show. So like on the next episode, and they do the fake freeze frame.
Right.
And he comes back. And I will say they do a very good job of like trying to end this button of all these episodes of give Samurai a reason to pull his sword out and like swing and then freeze. And they do the thing where he's wearing the hospital gown or whatever. He's like, can you help me get this off? Can you help me? And then for some weird ass reason, like John goes in like full on teeth and like tries to like.
I didn't understand that either.
I just feel that was the thing like everybody does when you can't untie something, you start getting your teeth and trying to bite it open, but he can't untie it. And then John takes a step back and pulls the samurai sword out and goes to swing, and they do the freeze frame. And this is my favorite, best like fuck up of the night, is they do the freeze frame and they freeze, and John's about to cut the gown top, and they all freeze. After about 4 seconds, Kris moves. Like he just like steps and turns around and looks over his shoulder at John, like, is the sketch over? And it totally blew the ending.
Right.
But it was probably the funniest part of the whole
Like,
sketch.
Kris, you had one job.
Yeah.
All you had to do was stay still. Next, we get a number from Rita Coolidge. I'm going to go get the whiskey while you explain this.
Well, so this is Rita Coolidge performing a song, Hula Hoop. She would eventually record this with Kris Kristofferson on one of their duet albums in 1978 called Natural Act. This is just a weird tune. Like a weird tune for her to do. I don't know.
I agree.
It's a funky tune. Like, I kind of dig it. It was fun, but just, I don't know. Weird. It was also weird to see the musical act back on home base.
Right.
They had that side stage where they put the musical act, which looked kind of cool. And all of a sudden for this episode, they're all on home base. This is a big band.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why, right?
I don't know why.
That's how I took it. It is a big band. There are a lot of players here, so they had to be at home base.
I don't know. I just thought maybe they tore down the side stage.
Well, I don't know.
But like, is this legitimately a song about hula hoops? Did I miss another meaning?
I don't know. I didn't really listen to the song. But then Gilda and Lorraine come on at the end of the song with actual hula hoops.
Well, even before that.
We're going to dive into this more.
I'm going to dive into this. They do a cutaway to the keyboard player banging away. Do you hear the keyboard? No. This is like Billy Preston, episode 1. Like, why are you showing somebody playing an instrument that you cannot hear on the broadcast? Come on, guys. Dave Wilson, what's up? Come on.
I'll be honest. I got up to get the whiskey hoping that you would be done talking about Rita Coolidge.
No. But I will flash forward to the end. There's 2 things I will note on this. As you said, at the end, she comes out, she grabs a hula hoop, she comes out to center stage, she starts hula hooping. Gilda and Lorraine are also hula hooping. 2 things. 1, Gilda is having a fucking blast.
Yeah.
That the look on Gilda's face is like, this is the most fun I've ever had. And 2, Lorraine does not drop that hula hoop once.
That's what I was going to say.
Which just, not that I needed another reason or another example, but there is nothing Lorraine Newman cannot do.
It's kind of incredible because both Gilda and Rita Coolidge dropped the hula hoops a few times. And Lorraine is
not
just
once.
going.
Not once.
Going.
Lorraine just goes nonstop.
She doesn't stop until they're fading to
until
black.
they're done. She's
It's
like, oh, the skit's
amazing.
done. I'm going to leave.
Well, one of my favorite things from season 1 has been Garrett's singles to camera.
Really? Or are you just trying to segue?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
No, I think it's been my favorite times to see Garrett is when he's to camera by himself.
I give you that. Yeah.
Right. So this time he comes on as Jesse Owens, Olympic athlete.
Because sadly, at this point, my note was, I can't believe I'm praying for Garrett Morris to save us right now.
And you didn't like this one?
He can't even speak English.
Well,
Gary, he can't even speak English.
Garrett definitely looks a little glassy-eyed.
Yeah.
Shall we say?
Yeah.
But Garrett Morris comes on as Jesse Owens, hawking collective coins.
Did you say honky already?
No, hawking.
Oh,
hawking.
Sorry.
Collective coins for, I forget how he phrases it, the great white athlete, a dying breed.
A dying breed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought this was funny. I agree with you. Couldn't totally understand everything Garrett was saying.
No.
But I got the point.
Yeah. I mean, this is like episode 1.
Yeah.
Like, it's so short and you're so quick and it's like, what the fuck just happened? But yeah, he comes out, he does this bit where he's, making fun of the Winter Olympics in 76 and in Canada and the white athlete who are a dying breed. And he mentions, what is
it was the Summer Olympics.
Summer Olympics. And it's like swimming and spear chucking. Javelin. Like it turns dark all of a sudden at the end, but with the spear chucking comment, and then he called like a random honky comment. And I'm kind of wondering, like, was that written? Or did Garrett just decide on air to like get fucking?
Maybe.
I don't know. Because even Don Pardo comes in to like read the write-off on the end. And he's like, Don Parter even sounds like, here we go. I guess we're out of here.
Then we go to the Oval Office.
We're due. We're overdue.
But then we get the chyron that said, this is not the president. But then who is? And we get Chevy again with the phone gag with the red phone and the black phone. And he picks them both up and he crisscrosses
We've
the
done that
wires.
before, right?
Yes.
I feel like we've seen that.
Yes, we did. And then Kris Kristofferson comes in as an uncommitted delegate. So this was around the time of the 1976, both Republican and Democratic national conventions. So this was a joke all about the uncommitted delegates, this one being from Mississippi. And this was a funny joke that I thought when the guy's about to come in and then Chevy puts up the map of Mississippi over the top of map
over
of Pennsylvania.
It doesn't even cover to like half-ass coverage. So you can still see Pennsylvania behind it.
Because earlier this week, Reagan had named Swiker, who was he was a guy from Pennsylvania to be his vice president. It doesn't matter. Yeah. That's why it was Pennsylvania. And then Kris Kristofferson comes in to be swayed by President Ford to give his votes to President Ford.
And at this point, we've seen these Ford sketches. And my first note was, after seeing Kris Kristofferson up to this point, there's no way he's going to keep up with this. Again, as much as I've bitched and complained about Chevy, like Chevy is smart. He can play these roles very well. And watching the two of them sit down together, my first note was, there's no way he's keeping up with this. Very shortly followed by, it is taking everything to mutter these words that are on his cue cards that he has to say.
Yeah. It was a tough sketch all around for the actors.
It was. I mean, Chevy tried his best. I'll give him credit, but it was tough.
Chevy tried his best. And then Jane comes in as Betty Ford, and she really like shepherds the end of that sketch.
Well, you're really jumping ahead because there's this whole like
I'm trying
tulip
to
joke.
Yeah.
Where Chevy talks about the drink of the South, and he's like, "Oh, mint tulip." And my only thought was like, did this become an Emily Litella sketch all of a sudden? Like this felt very Emily Litella.
The wordplay, right?
So like, here's a drink, here's a mint tulip, and he brings these drinks, and it just made no sense to me of like how they'd played this Ford line the whole season. Yeah.
Right. And there's one point where Chevy turns around and Kris Kristofferson grabs his drink and starts drinking it.
It's like, maybe there's booze in there. I'm due. Come on.
And then Jane comes on as Betty Ford and really wraps up this sketch. Like she tries really hard to play along, but Kris Kristofferson is not in it at that point. She does.
Like I thought Jane was going to save this sketch at one point because I was like, it's going nowhere. Kris is drowning this sketch. It ain't working. Like, great. Jane's going to come in and save it. I was like, maybe.
No.
Yeah. It went on. Yeah.
No.
Went on a tad too long, just like this, and we couldn't figure out a way out.
But we can just legitimately take a drink.
I'm going to keep drinking.
Cheers. All right, there we go.
If you made it this far, everybody, thank you. We're almost done. The last episode. We'll get there.
No, we're not. We're not almost done. There's a lot left.
Police State.
So Dan and Chevy. So this sketch is a television show called Police State, starring Dan and Chevy as different actors, and I didn't write their names.
Oh, they were good names too.
Yeah.
We did poor research. Sorry.
What happens is that they go to this was actually funny, is like every time there was a little beep, Chevy was like, that's a 135, we gotta go, and then they would run off screen, and then go to the next scene. They're knocking on a door, John answers the door, and then they just shoot him. And then they were like, oh, we got a 135, and then go to the next scene and then just shoot the person. Totally appropriate commentary for police violence, brutality.
Yeah, I mean, it's the shoot now, ask later. All of these things, they go and they knock on someone's door. Can we ask you a few questions? Sure. Pow, 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 pow. Freeze, don't move. You know, like they've already shot the guy and they're like reading the Miranda rights, or they're saying don't move. And it's the shoot now, ask later mentality. It's a scathing critique of police force at this time.
Yeah. If that's what they were going for.
What would it not be?
I don't know. You think so?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I thought that, but then I thought, am I giving them too much credit?
No, I mean, it's a Michael O'Donoghue piece. And I think this is very much him kind of reaching back in that lampoons mentality of shocking more than funny. And that's the thing of this first season.
Yeah.
You know, you got to remember is they're still very much in that lampoon mentality with Chevy and Michael O'Donoghue, where sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's just shocking. Sometimes it's both. And I think this is a little bit of both, but it's more like we're going to make a comment and be shocking. And you might chuckle, but you're going to be more like, oh my God. And I think that's what this is. You know, they're making this comment on police procedures and mentality of the time, which sadly is not that remiss right now.
No, not at all.
And you couldn't play this sketch right now, but it's not that far off. You could watch it now and still be like, oh shit.
Yeah. If you did this now, you'd have to play it as a 1970s cop show like
you
this.
Couldn't play it now.
Yeah.
That's how you'd have to play the sketch. If you wrote the sketch now, you would play it as like a retro,
right? Exactly.
Vintage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they do this really fucking smart thing in the beginning when it's Dan and Chevy and they're talking about when they went out and had food the night before or whatever. And they're like, oh, we had Chinese, there's Polynesian. What's the difference? Like, it's a very subtle racist comment.
Right.
And they're doing it as a joke and they're laying the foundation for then, okay, we're going to set these guys up. And then they go out and just shoot these guys. But it's more shock than funny. But it's these two cops who are just going around killing people, asking questions later.
Can we talk about the funny part of this though? Was the Matchbox cars that they used as the like police, like the chases
in between the sketches.
Yeah. Like
which
crashes.
almost kind of hurt the sketch because I feel like in the beginning it wasn't working like they wanted to. They would cut between each call. They get a call and they'd go to such and such apartment or such and such house, and in between they would cut to these like a model intersection with Matchbox cars. And the first one, nothing really happened. And the second one, they started to throw them in. By the end, they're literally just throwing cars on. And
you see someone pour lighter fluid on.
Someone puts a hand in, lights gutter, which is like total Michael O'Donoghue. Puts the lighter fluid on and lights it on. The whole fucking thing goes in flames. Somebody reaches and throws a bus on top of it.
Right.
Like it's pretty nuts.
Well,
I think it's pretty good. I think it got lost in a bad episode. I don't know. And this is a good sketch. I give it credit.
I feel like this was a sketch that if Michael O'Donoghue held this and worked on this for another couple months for season 2, it would have been a strong sketch.
Maybe.
Yeah. So we're on to Weekend Update.
Yeah, all right.
So Weekend Update is introduced by Dom Pardo as Weekend Update with Dom Pardo, official announcer of the 1976 Olympics. And then Chevy's phone call this week, as we interrupt his phone call normally, is something sexual with a partner of his. He's saying, I don't know, he's an alcoholic. He's been a game show host for whatever.
Making Dom Pardo jokes.
Yeah. And then we get a bunch of Olympic jokes. Back to the gymnast, and then Gerald Ford, and then Jimmy Hoffa joke. Is there anything to cover in this?
No, there's nothing. I mean, a lot of topical stuff didn't work. Chevy's sweating a shitload.
Boy, he's a sweaty guy.
Hey, let's add to the number of people who've drunken or done a lot of drugs tonight, because I think I'm going to add Chevy to the list right now.
He's very sweaty.
Yeah, then we send to Kris Kristofferson. Why not?
Why? So then we go to a live commercial with Kris Kristofferson about how he got to where he is, and he's pitching his book, Talk Country.
I like this one, actually.
Oh, good. Then you talk about it.
Well, it's Kris Kristofferson doing this commercial about this book he wrote called Talk Country, where he was never found successful because he was a Rhodes Scholar. Until you learn how to talk country by dropping your G's on words like feeling and loving and children, which I thought was children. I mean, he still can't speak.
Yeah.
But I feel like if he was at all semi-coherent, as I am not, this would have been funny. But
Sure.
I like the live, going to a live country live commercial. I don't know.
Yeah.
This was.
So
I
you
like
the
idea of
live
this.
commercial
I
versus a pre-taped.
I always like the live, and I
Yes.
thought this was kind of funny.
Look,
and if he was at all coherent, this would have been funny. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't even want to talk about the Kris Kristofferson piece. So Lorraine is then at NASA, or she's supposed to be at NASA.
Yep.
And then she's talking about how wonderful it is and how wonderful the people are and how everyone's so accommodating. And she's also in a bikini with a towel over her shoulder. The green screen is a beach setting. And it turns out she's in Nassau, not in NASA.
Right.
That's the
That's the
bit.
bit. I will say, I like the end when Chevy's like, that's Lorraine paying for her own vacation in Nassau. Like, that line was funny.
Yeah.
But the rest of it.
I thought that was funny by her being like, do I have to pay for this?
Like, paying for her vacation, Lorraine Newman in Nassau. And then we come back to Weekend Update, and Chevy recycles the old George Wallace joke for Spiro Agnew.
Oh, boy, did he.
Yeah, he did. Chevy's done, right? I mean, I got the feeling this whole Weekend Update, he knows he's done. He's going to come back in season 2 and do like a month. And he's like, I don't want to do this shit anymore.
I mean,
we've seen bad Weekend Updates before, but I feel like Chevy kind of tried to sell them. I felt like in this one, Chevy's like, I'm done. Like, I got nothing.
I mean, maybe, but I kind of feel that way about everybody on this episode, and I can't blame them.
See, I disagree. I didn't get that at all until here. This is the only time I felt somebody was like, I'm over this. And it was Chevy being like, I'm done doing this shit. Everybody else.
Well, I think like you have to take Dan out of this, right? Because Dan's just happy to be doing whatever at this point.
Dan's a pro.
Right. Garrett.
As are the women.
Right. Garrett, totally.
So we've now limited ourselves to John and Garrett, but go ahead. Yes. 2 of the most obnoxious drug-addled people during the 1970s. But go ahead, keep going.
No, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you're right. I feel like I'm going to regret this, but I didn't feel like Jane was totally in it either when she's on.
I agree with you. Jane's not into it. I
just feel like everyone
back in the day, I feel like more often than not, you would say Jane's not in it.
Yeah.
But she's a pro. And she's like, I'm going to show up and do my job and do it well. And that's what Jane does.
Yeah. All right. Maybe. We'll revisit that when we get to Jane. Yeah. I mean, it's coming up soon. So, well, luckily we come back to Kris Kristofferson singing again.
He is good at it. I'll give him credit for that. He is a good singer.
Sure. And he then stops singing and starts talking about Bobby McGee.
Well, because he's singing Me and Bobby McGee.
Yeah.
You left that part out, by the way.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm just trying to help.
I appreciate that. This is no easier in person.
No, it is not. It is not. I agree.
No, I think it could be. So he then introduces the real Bobby McGee.
He's singing Me and Bobby McGee.
Yeah. I thought we covered that already.
No, you missed it. No, you missed it.
But you just said it.
Did you mention that it was most well known for Janis Joplin as number 1 hit? Did you say that?
No.
Okay, well, there you go.
Anyone who's listening to this knows that Janis Joplin sang Me and Bobby McGee.
All 3 of you still listening.
No, they're done.
Yep.
So we see for the first time, Larry and Bobby Farber come on because Bobby Farber, played by Gilda, is the real Bobby McGee. You have your wine glass there. You don't have to pour that in your whiskey glass.
Whatever. Keep going.
So Gilda comes on as Bobby Farber, the actual Bobby McGee, who comes on. And if you know Bobby Farber, she's like a middle-aged woman with this very strong accent. And Kris Kristofferson is kind of taken aback by her change. And then John comes up as her husband, Larry Farber, and he gets very jealous once listening to the lyrics of Bobby McGee, realizing that Kris Kristofferson is singing about his wife and how close they are and their bodies. And that's it. That's all my notes. My last note is, why is this still going?
Yeah. I don't know what to make of this. It was fun to see John and Gilda together. It was fun. Again, we kind of know the Farbers a little bit at this point, but at that time, it's new characters. Yeah. This is, again, it's kind of season 1 John. He's still there where he's playing kind of subtle John, not over the top John. I liked it. The end was a little bit tough when he gets rough and like grabs her off the stage.
Yeah.
But I mean, Gilda's fucking great. I mean, let's just stop. Gilda comes on and it's not a monologue, but Gilda does this character great. She doesn't miss a line. She doesn't skip a beat. She plays off of Knucklehead Kristofferson and John. She is fantastic.
That's what I was going to say. Like the way she plays off of Kristofferson, who clearly is not on point here. Right. And she does a great job of like bringing everything back and setting John up.
And what she ad-libbed, which you know she did, she's great. Between him and John, Gilda owns this. Yeah. And it was really fun to watch her show up with these two knuckleheads and really command the stage.
Yeah. Come on, Chris, finish the song. You know, a lot of my friends back in Highland Park don't believe that I'm the real Bobby McGee. So could you just sing it for them, please? Sing the rest of the song. Please. Please. Pretty please with sugar on top. Please. Could you sing it, Chris?
Somewhere near Selena's part. I let her slip away. No, I say, from the coal mines of Kentucky to the California sun, Bobby shared the secrets.
When were you in Kentucky, sweetheart? You know, I thought you were just hitchhiking back to school.
Larry, it was a long time ago.
She's fantastic in this. And I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. She's so fun. And even the joke of her being this like old hippie who might have been on the road and jumping on a truck with Kristofferson and being the, you know, the inspiration, the muse to the song. And then she yells at her husband and, oh, that was then. It was one day. You're out of control. You know, you're getting over, you know, you're overexcited. Like Gilda is so good in this. Yeah. That we can't let that slide.
No, she's wonderful. Rita Coolidge comes on for some reason.
I feel like she tries to come on to like bail Chris out.
Well, it kind of, when I was watching this, it kind of felt like Chris wasn't stopping. And it felt like, go help them out of this.
They do a very good job story-wise of like progressing this, where John's like, he starts out being a fan and like, oh, play the song. And then the more Chris plays it, the more John hears it. Right. As far as
because John's like, I don't know this song.
Oh, wait. Oh, pull you close to me or hold me close. And then John gets more upset and like asks him to come outside. So it's an interesting build up. I feel like Gilda knows the character and she has it. Mm-hmm. And John is finding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
You trying to segue?
No, you're
trying to segue. Go ahead,
segue. Well, Jane.
Gilda's a woman and Jane is a woman. Segue. There you go. Happy to help.
I was going to say Jane has her character as a woman who is on a blind date with apparently her gynecologist. So Jane, the sketch opens with Jane on the phone to some friend, and she's talking about being on a blind date and that the person she's on a blind date with is her gynecologist, which makes her very uncomfortable. So Kris Kristofferson comes on as her gynecologist, and then they have a really awkward back and forth talking about how Jane says that she's kind of uncomfortable being on a blind date with her gynecologist, and Kris Kristofferson says, well, it's no different than being on a blind date with your accountant. And she says, I wouldn't mind if he saw the inside of my checkbook.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked that joke. And then the whole joke is just them going back and forth, and Jane wondering if he remembers all of the vaginas that he sees. And then when he says, I don't even remember yours, then she's okay with it.
Yeah. This is I think the problem with this sketch is Kris Kristofferson.
Would you be
No, it was Kris Kristofferson playing the gynecologist.
Okay.
Because like, really, you're a gynecologist, and also he can't speak English at this point. They set it up right away. Mm-hmm. It's a great setup.
Sure.
It's written really well.
Yes.
It's a really nice slice of life, two-hander. In theory, this is a great sketch. I would love to see this in the hands of a different host.
Elliot Gould.
No.
So I was going to say Elliot Gould.
So my first thought was Buck.
Yeah, that was my first thought.
And then I was like, you know what? Buck's a little old.
Right.
Yes, Elliot Gould.
Yeah.
Fucking perfect.
Yes.
Elliot Gould knocked this out of the park.
Right.
I had that exact same comment. It's such a great, like, we talked about this last week with Louise Lasser with the male body parts. Like, this is a great twofer cast and host sketch. Highlight them and have a really great time.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like even Jane can't save this sketch.
Right.
Like, I want this to be this, my how great is Jane?
Yeah.
But she couldn't pull through. There's at one point, and I will give credit to Kris Kristofferson. I will say this is his best sketch of the night.
Low bar.
It's a low bar.
Yeah.
Yes, but like he was in it. He had a lot of words to say. He got most of them out of his mouth.
Yeah.
You know, there was one point he's got a monologue and he kind of stops and Jane's like, well, like she like pushes him on. So she tries her best. I feel like it's well written. I feel like it's kind of smart. It feels very, if I didn't say this already, like Marilyn Suzanne Miller, you know, slice of life. It's really good. It just missed the mark in the delivery.
Well, do you have anything left to talk about?
No, I want to cut. No, I want to cut this out as
Kristofferson?
well.
Kris Kristofferson and Rita Coolidge come on to sing "Eddie the Eunuch," which is from Kris Kristofferson's album from 1976 called "Surreal Thing."
Just came out.
Yeah, it had just come out at this.
Is
point.
it odd that he just does a sketch as a gynecologist, and now he's singing? And now
Eddie
he's
the
singing
Eunuch?
a song as a eunuch. I'm just asking a question. I'm just asking.
That's a good question.
As a podcaster, this is my job.
Oh, that's your job?
I don't know. I should look this up.
No, yeah, it was a fine performance.
Why are they on home base? I felt it on this song. They have a set. We know they can put big bands on. Why
I know,
are
but
they doing this?
he's all about his band and wanting to show off his band, right? Because he talks about them later, how great his band is at the Good
They're
Nights.
good.
Sure.
I'm not going to knock him. He's a great musician.
But you just did.
I did not.
Maybe not as a
Did we
musician.
just talk about hula hoop again?
No, that was Rita Coolidge. Yeah,
Gary,
I
this
don't
guy
know.
wrote me and Bobby McGee. Show some respect.
Oh, the Janis Joplin tune?
That's the one.
Oh, okay.
Rewind. Listen, everyone. We're just trying to prove that being drunk and doing a show does not work. Whether you're Kris,
Please
Kris
rate and review.
Kristofferson, doesn't work, okay? Please rate and review. Please rate and review. This is the end of season 1. Everyone, we want people to listen to season 2. Rate and review. Just give 5 stars and walk away. Next scene.
Garrett Morris comes out as preacher Andrew Young, who is a civil rights activist at this time. And he is preaching about Jimmy Carter. And he introduces Jimmy Carter. So we have Dan come out.
I'm going to stop.
Why?
Because I did no research. And by this point, I checked out. Who is Andrew Young?
So Andrew Young was a civil rights leader from the South. He was also currently I believe, member of the House of Representatives. And he was a huge advocate for Jimmy Carter. Mm-hmm. So the whole joke of this bit is that Jimmy Carter then comes on and talks about how he is not going to give Andrew Young a seat in his cabinet or any sort of position or any favors for being someone who's advocating for Jimmy Carter. And then he takes him aside, and Andrew Young, played by Garrett, is like, wait, Jimmy, I thought it was good. He was like, oh, we just need to put on face. That was what it was. And you see Dan come on here doing his Jimmy Carter. Again, he's obviously still working on this impression.
At least he has gray hair this time.
He has gray hair.
They have the gray hair.
Look, I give him credit for working on an impression as opposed to just saying, I'm Gerald Ford.
I mean, let's be honest. This is what this is. We're going to do 2 episodes. We're going to try out Gerald Ford. We tried
Jimmy
it last.
Carter.
Excuse me, Jimmy Carter. Yeah. We tried it last week. Here it is. Here's this week's version, and you'll see him in October.
And he's still working on it.
Yeah,
totally. As well, he should be. I really applaud Dan for doing an impression of Jimmy Carter as opposed to Chevy's Gerald Ford.
The mustache does or does not bother you?
I think it bothered me more when I was younger and saw like Dana Carvey as George Bush and trying to like, they would do more makeup and hair and everything.
He did not have a mustache.
No, but neither did Dana Carvey.
No.
But my point is that like he would at least have a wig that made it look like George Bush's hairline.
Oh, you're doing the wigs now.
No, I'm oh, boy. Either drink more wine or like
This is the 70s, man. We had no wigs.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like there was no makeup or prosthetics or anything to make him look like the president.
And they didn't care.
And they didn't care.
Right.
But with Chevy, he blatantly didn't care. It was just like, I'm Gerald Ford. Whereas Dan Aykroyd was like, I'm going to at least do an accent and put on a smile like Jimmy Carter.
You know, brothers and sisters, if there's one man to whom I'm politically indebted, it's Andy Young, most certainly. Many people think that naturally I'm going to reward Andy Young with some important post in the Carter administration. Well, I'm here to say right now to you people that you're not going to be seeing Andy Young driving in a big fancy limousine.
So then we go to Garrett.
Wait, hold on.
Oh,
we can't
my
go.
God.
Can we talk about them ending the scene? Or excuse me, can we?
Oh, with the I Have a Dream.
Can we talk
Yes.
about them ending the sketch?
Yeah.
With Garrett and Dan side by side, and Dan talking to Garrett, and then going like a blah, 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 with enough time for Garrett to run to another set to jump into a bed under covers for some random bizarro I Have a Dream line?
What do we have to say about this?
But why did
Going
they even
into-
do that? Like, why did they
Nobody
not move
knows.
of, like,
And then we come back to Garrett introducing the next bit, which, what?
holy shit, he does introduce the next bit. That's right.
Yes.
Garrett's getting fucked. Whatever.
Is he? Like, this is the most screen time in one episode Garrett may have seen all season.
Listen, let's not do Garrett. Let's give him a break. Come on.
So Garrett introduces Waiting for Pardo, which is Kris Kristofferson and Chevy Chase coming on and doing a bit on Waiting for Godot.
I'm going to stop this now.
Good.
Thank you. No,
Yes.
I do not know Waiting for Godot.
What?
And by this point, I've totally checked out. So, Gary, I'm sorry.
What's
No, I legit, this is all up to you. I literally have nothing to say. I'm so sorry.
What's
Go ahead.
funny is that
I have nothing. Go ahead.
So we have Kris Kristofferson and Chevy Chase come on, and they do a whole bit about Waiting for Godot, which if you don't know Waiting for Godot, I don't know what to tell you.
Some of us don't. Sorry.
My only note for this
Some
really
of
was
us do know some Melbeck. What else?
You're doing great with that Malbec.
Thanks, buddy.
It's an Azteca Malbec from Argentina, the 2022 varietal that Brad is drinking. So Don Pardo checks in between and keeps interrupting the two hobos talking about all of their travails waiting for Pardo. And he talks about how all of these things, they just interrupt. And like a game show, Don Pardo interrupting and talking about the different things.
Listen, I'll fix this. You're more learned than I. You know plays of some sort.
Uh-huh.
So is this a decent comment on the play Waiting for Godot? Because I don't know. I'm legitimately asking.
Sure. Yes. But the whole bit, the joke is that Don Pardo, keeps interrupting in the game show Don Pardo bit and telling them about like
because Waiting for Godot, it's very existential bullshit, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to do that,
Yes.
and at the same time intercut these Don Pardo commercialism.
Correct.
Like, hey, I'm asking.
No, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
legitimately asking.
yeah.
'Cause I don't know.
Yes. You're right.
So that's the point of this sketch.
Yes.
Yeah, like, does it work? As someone who knows Godot, which I do not. That's why I
It
asked.
works in that there's like one character that's supposed to be a little bit off, and that's who Kristofferson plays.
Mhm.
And then Chevy plays the other one who's is off, but not as much, and is like keeps the thing moving forward. So yes, they play this well in that manner. I mean, it's a stretch, but that's why it's there, is because you're pulling in Don Pardo, right? Like
Right.
that's it. Like the whole joke is just Pardo, Godot. That's it. That's the joke.
I get that, which I mean, I like it. I always like Don Pardo jokes. Let me ask you this. Run of the night,
Mm-hmm.
how is the Kris Kristofferson performance in this sketch compared to other sketches?
I think this should have been earlier because I
You
think
think he
that-
played well?
Yeah, and I think that if you had done this earlier with a little more inebriated, Kris Kristofferson would have played better than, I mean, it would have played better than some of the earlier sketches with Kris Kristofferson. That's all.
Yeah. This is, I mean, I legitimately completely missed this. So that's why I'm like asking these questions because I'm curious.
I think it's better than it played at whatever, 1:45 in the morning.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But then we have another song from
Thank God.
Kristofferson. Oh. I put in my note more songs for Brad.
It's another song off his new album. I Got a Life of My Own. I like this song. I don't know. I kind of dig it. Dude, this guy made 7 albums in the last 6 years.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. That's impressive.
Good for him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
What I think is very interesting about this Kris Kristofferson hosting is, he was a guy like Star Is Born had not come out, so he
it comes out in December.
It comes out in December, exactly. Yeah. So he was on that cusp. He was coming up, and I'm gonna double down on what I said last week of SNL trying to say, listen, we're gonna get this dude on because you want us to go on in the summer, so we're gonna do it, and we'll do the best we can, but it's gonna be a shit show. Because it's interesting. Think about, they had just been through what happened the last week, right?
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. Louise Lasser is fresh in their minds.
Right.
And they're making another episode. What do you want to do?
Okay, so wait.
I'm just saying, this is a group who's like, they're pro-show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like, we'll come back. We'll do what you want. Here it is. We did Louise we did Louise Lasser. Now we're going to bring this rock star in. He's going to be drunk. Like, I'm saying they embraced it.
Right.
And this is what you want us to do. If you want to make us come back in the fucking summer, here's what you get. And they do it.
Fuck, I don't disagree with you. This was, I think, the culmination of a 2-week train wreck between last week and this week.
It was.
Yeah. And it's apparent.
They're not doing shit. They're just phoning it in.
Yeah.
Because they knew they could. Because they're going to come back in season 2 and knock it out of the park.
Right. Before we get to season 2, though, what are your best bits?
For this one, my best bits, that Sherry sketch.
Yeah.
The Sherry sketch is great. And I do think Police State.
Yeah.
I think Police State is a really great sketch. It's one of those things that I think is more shocking than funny.
Yeah.
Which is more lampoon than anything else. But I say Sherry and Police State are the two bits from this episode, I would think.
Yeah, I had Sherry on my list and that was it. But I understand your point about Police State.
We talk about a lot of times we find decent sketches on bad episodes. And we're like, oh, if this is on a different episode, it would be good, blah, blah, blah. I think Police State on another episode.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Don't disagree with you. Well, that's it. That is episode 24 of season 1 for the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. Next week, we are going to be discussing...
Next week?
Yeah. Next week, we're going to be doing a season 1 wrap-up show. Until then, thank you.
Until then, thank you everybody so much. Please rate, review. It's been a blast. We've had so much fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as we have. If anything we've taught you, do not do drunk episodes. They're not good.
That's all good.
But thank you.
But yes, thank you. We will talk to you next week with the season 1 wrap-up show. Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.